Someone was asking a person why they betrayed him. The man revealed that he had been hiding for so long but had finally found his home. The man grabbed him by the collar and declared that it was not a civilized society because in that apocalyptic world it was the law of the jungle, and he inquired if he understood. The girl who was with the person explained that she was just a weak woman and she could only rely on the strong, so he shouldn't blame her. The man swung his golf club, which made the person panic, and questioned him what he wanted. But instead of answering his question, a loud puffing sound was heard, and blood splattered all over the place. 28 weeks later, the global ice age came, and human nature was also frozen in that ice. Someone was walking through the frozen ground while a man was dead and frozen. The person simply walked past the frozen corpse of the man and continued walking. A few moments later, the person removed their hood and their mask to catch their breath. As he removed his glasses to inspect the area, he observed that it seemed like the place hadn't been explored yet, and he noted that food and fuel, which were once easy to obtain, had become extremely precious. There was a huge city below the ice where he was standing, and he asserted that the ice there was thick enough, so it should be safe. Suddenly, there was a loud, rumbling sound. The guy was alarmed, and he pondered if it was an earthquake. He cursed as the ice below his feet shattered, and he commented that the frozen world was like God telling them that human civilization is as fragile as thin ice, vulnerable to a single blow. The guy was falling head first into the crack, and he cursed as he proclaimed that he was going to fall and die at that rate. He brought out an ice axe, and he was begging for it not to break. The guy dubbed the ice axe on the ice, but he still kept falling, and he cursed in his mind as he admitted that he couldn't stop at all. After skidding on the side of the ice, he fell onto the rooftop of a building. The guy grinned as he mused that, luckily, what was below him was snow, because if there were ice, he would have died there, and he was trying to recall how an old saying went. He was trying to recite that there must be something after escaping a great disaster, but suddenly he trailed off. Something smiled to show their fangs, and it has multiple eyes. The guy confessed that what was even more despairing in that frozen world was a creature named White Skin, which hunts human beings, and that creature was grinning in front of him at that moment. The guy looked horrified as he speculated if he was lucky. He ran with all his might as the White Skin chased after him, and he acknowledged that the luck was not worth it. While the White Skin was chasing after the guy, something that looked like a transparent slug was floating up with the stalactites. Looking back, the guy saw that the White Skin was about to grab him, and he cried out that it was a disaster. Suddenly, the stalactites were slashed by something. They were falling towards the White Skin, which was unaware of it. The sharp rocks pierced the White Skin at the back of his head, and the guy continued to run as the White Skin's eyes were taken out of its head. Looking at the dead White Skin, the guy wondered if it was because there was so much noise that the ice stalactites were shaken down, and he realized that whatever it was, it saved his life. But the guy was alarmed when the concrete above him started to crumble. He looked so horrified as he exclaimed that it was bad. The concrete fell down in front of him, along with a huge amount of snow. The snow quickly flooded over the guy, and he was alarmed as he feared he was going to be buried alive. Just as he feared, the guy was buried under the snow, and only his hand was showing when the transparent slug from earlier approached him. The creature came over and examined the guy's hand, which was protruding from the snow. Its eyes glowed, and it excreted some sort of nerve from its mouth. A few moments later, the guy suddenly woke up, but his eyes were glowing, the same color as the creature from earlier. The guy looked so shaken, and while his left eye was of a different color, his right eye looked normal. He asked himself what just happened and why he was daydreaming there. The guy touched the back of his neck, unaware of the blue veins that were bulging and glowing out of it. He decided to forget it, as he had been outside long enough. The guy remarked that he better go back quickly, but he found a chocolate bar on the ground, so he observed that at least he wouldn't return empty-handed that day. A few moments later, the guy was standing in front of a tall building. While he was opening up a manhole, he explained that because most of the city was frozen by ice, the only way home was through that passage, and day after day, he didn't know how long that kind of life would last. As he arrived at the bottom, he saw other people camping there, and he commented that, compared to outside, the situation in the building was also quite bad. The people were looking at him with scrutinizing eyes, and as he passed by them, he noted that when the disaster struck, many people were trapped in that building, and currently, with scarce supplies, he dared not imagine what those people would do. The guy quickly walked away from them, and he mentioned that in that apocalyptic world, no one could guarantee that those people would not cross that line. He looked around, and as he noticed that it seemed that those guys hadn't started patrolling that day, he concluded that he had to hurry home. The guy began knocking on a door. A girl quickly opened the door for him, and he was startled. The guy pointed out to the girl, whose name was Taeyoming, that she opened the door so quickly, and as he was about to ask her if she did not lock the door, he was caught off guard as Taeyoming hugged him. Taeyoming exclaimed that she just wanted to see him quickly. The guy was blushing, and as Taeyoming asked him if he didn't want to see her quickly, he admitted that of course he does. But the guy still reminded Taeyoming that she should also lock the door securely, and Taeyoming threw up a tantrum, asking him if locking his door was more important than his girlfriend. The guy showed Taeyoming the chocolate and urged to look at what he had brought her. Taeyoming looked at it skeptically and asked him what it was. Suddenly, she realized that it was chocolate. Taeyoming was so happy that she lunged to hug and gave the guy kisses, and as she called him her dear, she proclaimed that he was the best, which made the guy blush again. But as the guy started walking away, Taeyoming looked disappointed while asking him if there was only one, and the guy confirmed that it was just one, adding that he almost got eaten by monsters for it, so she should hurry up and eat. The guy was still carrying his huge backpack that was smeared with blood as he walked away. Taeyoming looked so pissed while looking at the guy that she broke the chocolate in her hand in half. A few moments later, the guy was sitting in front of a fireplace, and he was asking himself what he should do because it had been several days since he found decent food. He was looking at the seeds he had collected before, and he wondered if they had to eat them that day. Looking at some sprouts, the guy acknowledged that the situation with the seeds they planted before was not very optimistic, but if they eat the seeds, there will be no hope at all. He looked at his backpack, and he asserted that if they continue like that, everyone will lose their minds. Grabbing a weird-looking meat, the guy suggested that if the meat of those monsters was not poisonous, the people in that building wouldn't have to endure hunger and those guys. He threw the meat at the fireplace and considered that, looking at the bright side, at least the fat from those monsters was good fuel. The guy reflected that at least in that frozen world, they won't freeze to death, and when he saw the clock, he was surprised that it was Valentine's Day that day. He looked distressed as he admitted to himself that he had actually forgotten. The guy came back to the living room, and he apologized to Taeyoming for forgetting that day. But he noticed that Taeyoming was gone, so he wondered where she went. Suddenly, he heard knocking on the door. The guy immediately recognized the signal as Taeyoming's, and he wondered why she went outside and what she was doing. He opened the door and was about to confront Taeyoming, but he was greeted by a swinging bat. The guy was not able to react, and he was hit directly by the bat on his face. The impact was so strong that he flew backwards, and his nose was spurting out blood. He crashed at the end of the room, and the man who swung the bat addressed him as Brother Mo while wishing him Merry Christmas. Taeyoming was clinging to the man, and he inquired of Mo if he was surprised or if it was unexpected. Mo immediately questioned Taeyoming why she betrayed him and why she followed Luo Dong, the man with the bat. Taeyoming looked pissed as she interrogated Mo how he could still inquire and if he thought he could fool her with a piece of chocolate. Taeyoming declared not to think she didn't know that he had hidden all the food, and as Mo tried to reason out with her, she challenged him if he only brought back air with such a big back and accused him of still being human for even lying to his girlfriend. Luo Dong crouched in front of Mo, and as he expressed his sympathy for him as a fellow man, he offered him some advice. He revealed that they were not in a civilized society because, in that apocalyptic world, it was the law of the jungle, and he queried him if he understood, as he explained that no woman would be willing to follow him because he couldn't even support his woman. Smacking the golf club on the floor, Luo Dong stated that weaklings have only two choices, either depend on the strong or be preyed upon by the weak. Luo Dong demanded that Mo hand over his food, but Mo inquired of Luo Dong where he had any food. Luo Dong started to swing the golf club as he suggested that it seems he refuses to depend on the strong, so he could only be preyed upon by the weak, and Mo panicked while he queried Luo Dong what he was going to do. Mo's leg got broken when Luo Dong struck it with the golf club. His face got deformed, and a tooth flew out of his mouth as he was struck on the face with the golf club as well. Luo Dong also struck his arm with the golf club and broke it. Luo Dong and his men battered Mo with their weapons, and they seemed to be enjoying it as his blood spurted out of his body. Mo was completely mutilated, and one of Luo Dong's men reported to him that they had just searched the entire house and only found rotten millet. Luo Dong crouched in front of Mo, who still had a bit of consciousness left, and as he mentioned that weaklings were also meat and they don't pick food, he commanded his man to give him the knife. Mo was starting to lose consciousness, and all he could perceive in his final moments was Luo Dong's grinning face while holding a knife. Blood splattered everywhere as Luo Dong harvested Mo's meat. As he lost his consciousness, Mo reflected that, after all, the ending he least wanted to see happen unwillingly, and if there was another life, he yearned to live, he aspired to survive. Suddenly, everything shattered, and Mo was leaning over an office desk. He opened his eyes abruptly, and the bright blue color was still in his eyes. Mo sprung up from his seat, and he shouted Luo Dong's name. But he was puzzled, and he questioned himself what was going on. Looking at his body, Mo recollected that he had already died, so he pondered why he was completely unharmed. Mo had returned to a moment in time, and he had 28 hours left until the global ice age. There were only 24 hours left until the global ice age, and the city seemed clueless as it was still lively. Protests in Queens are still ongoing, and the city police department has dispatched a large number of police forces to maintain order. The elites in Manhattan were enjoying themselves at their exclusive party. Brooklyn's gangs were conducting transactions on the dirtiest streets. It was July 14th, and the day was almost over, yet the whole city was unaware of what was about to happen. Everyone was unaware except for one person, Mo, and he looked up at the sky as he walked down the street. He saw the aurora in the sky, and while the other people were in awe and were busy taking a photo, Mo knew that it was a sign of the Ice Age. Suddenly, his phone rang, and he immediately knew that there could only be one person who was calling him at that time. It was Xiaoming. Remembering how Xiaoming remarked that she was just a weak woman, so she could only rely on the strong, Mo asserted that he was blinded by the appearance of that vile woman. He looked so determined as he declared that for doing such a thing to him, it was time to end it. As he picked up the call, Xiaoming immediately inquired if he was still working overtime and if he saw the aurora, as it was so beautiful. Xiaoming was at a club, and she questioned Mo if he could lend her some money because her credit card seemed to be maxed out. But Mo instantly announced that they should break up and that she shouldn't call him again, which surprised Xiaoming, and as she queried what was wrong with him and why he was suddenly doing such a thing, Mo ended the call. He deleted Xiaoming's contact information from his phone. Mo started to walk away. He reflected that since there was a second chance, women like Xiaoming who would harm him would freeze to death in the upcoming Ice Age. Mo was in the Brooklyn district. There were only 2 minutes left on July 14th, and Mo was thinking about the second chance. He acknowledged that at that time, he had to prepare well. Mo was thinking about his previous life, but he corrected himself and decided to call it the previous loop, and he noted that within 24 hours before the Ice Age, the temperature would gradually drop to the freezing point, so from that point onwards, there were less than 28 hours left before the world was frozen. He observed that it seems like there was plenty of time, but as the temperature drops, people will realize the problem, and society, which was already unstable, will become even more chaotic. Mo realized that the time left for him to collect supplies was only 1 hour. In addition to regular supplies, in the initial chaotic environment, they also needed something to protect themselves. Mo was thinking about guns. As he continued walking, he walked past a police car, and as the guy driver suggested that he felt that Mo was suspicious for still wandering on the streets so late, his master ordered him to follow Mo as he would show him some tricks. The master called Mo's attention and commanded him to stand there and not move. He demanded Mo to raise his hands while the other officer frantically ran towards the scene as backup. The guy immediately informed the other officers that they found a suspected robber on 4th Avenue, and as Mo cursed in his mind and mentioned that the neighborhood has been restless lately, so they mistook him for a robber, the master officer interrogated him about what was in his hand. Mo was obediently raising his hands, and he politely explained that it was a phone. He was supposed to start a timer on his phone, and he cursed in his mind as he realized that he didn't have time to waste with those two pigs. Mo was hoping that the officers would release him immediately after inspection, while the master officer was reminding the rookie not to approach the suspect recklessly at that time and questioning if he understood. The rookie was trembling in fear while he probed Mo about what was in the bag and ordered him to take it out. Mo nervously took his bag and clarified that he was just a working class. He was about to pull his tablet from the bag to show the officers, but the rookie panicked, and he looked so horrified while claiming that it was a weapon. He fired his gun at Mo. The bullet was coming at Mo, who was still pulling out his things from his bag. Mo was alarmed when he witnessed what just happened, and he realized that it was bad. He thought about his second chance to continue living, and he pondered if it was going to end there, but he refused to accept it and wished to live. At that moment, Mo's eyes lit up again. While the bullet was flying in his direction, Mo was emitting a strong energy. Time seemed to slow down, and Mo marveled at what was going on. He was so surprised that he could clearly see the bullet. As he clearly saw the slow-moving bullet in front of him, Mo was astounded when he realized that time was slowing down. Mo barely dodged the bullet by moving to the side, and when he saw that he dodged it, he admitted that it seemed like it was not an illusion. Looking at the rookie who fired another bullet, Mo criticized that he was an idiot because he was his taxpayer, and he actually shot at his taxpayer. Mo clenched his fist, and while he continued to emit such tremendous energy, he insisted that he didn't have time to waste on a stupid person like the officer. The casings of the bullets the rookie officer just fired slowly fell towards the ground. As soon as the bullet case touched the ground, some parts of it were already frozen. Mo moved swiftly to dodge the second bullet and lunged towards the rookie officer to deliver his punch. His punch was so strong that it sent the tooth of the officer flying. The officer was also sent flying, and he hit a pole before crashing on the ground, which horrified the master officer. The master officer was trembling in fear as he slowly looked behind him. He saw the body of the rookie officer that crashed on the ground, and it was extremely mutilated. The master officer fell to the ground, and he implored Mo about what the hell was going on and what he did to the rookie officer. He trembled in fear as he aimed his gun, and he questioned Mo about what he was. Mo was still exuding that tremendous energy, and his left eye was still glowing brightly as he continued to walk towards the master officer. He looked at the master officer menacingly as he confessed that he didn't know. The streets were filled with an eerie silence. The master officer radioed their command center and informed them that an officer was down, the suspect escaped, and a police gun was lost. He reiterated his report that the suspect escaped and a police gun was lost. As he continued to sit there on the street, the master officer remarked that that day was really unbelievable. Meanwhile, Mo was running at a tremendous speed towards a building. He was running towards his apartment and was about to enter his room. He sat in his living room, completely shaken up by what just happened. Mo looked horrified as he recalled the things that happened earlier. He looked so troubled as he questioned himself if it was real and how he could possibly do such a thing. Looking at the gun in his hand, Mo pondered if he should try again. He stood in front of the mirror and pointed the gun at his reflection. He fired the gun, and he activated his left eye. Mo moved at an incredible speed to face himself, who fired the gun, and he caught the bullet with his bare hand. He looked so ecstatic when he exclaimed that he had caught it. Looking at the bullet in his hand, Mo observed that it was just as he expected. He had gained superpowers. He noticed that since earlier there was no ice seal, yet there was frost on his body, so he speculated if it could be related to high-speed movement. His theory was that it was like a supersonic airplane. Mo suggested that it seemed that his superpower was related to speed. He grinned as he shared that, although it was not a particularly special ability, he had already foreseen the coming doomsday. Mo clenched his fist close to his chest as he affirmed that that ability could let him be fast one step ahead. Suddenly, Mo heard knocking on the door, and he wondered who was visiting him so late. When he opened the door, he was surprised when he saw the landlady. Unaware of the gun that was placed at the table in the living room, the landlady inquired of Mo if what she heard was the sound of a gunshot, and he was caught off guard. He awkwardly claimed that it was the sound from the TV as the remote control was broken, and he apologized. The landlady reminded Mo that the nearby supermarket just got robbed once, so the security there is not good. Mo thanked the landlady, Mrs. Fang, mentioning that she was too kind, and Mrs. Fang advised that young people still need to take care of their health, so he shouldn't work overtime too much. Mo closed the door to his apartment. He looked so astonished as he considered that he should get back to the point of how to solve the supplies. Mo recalled that Mrs. Fang just mentioned the nearby supermarket, and he concluded that there should be everything there. He grinned sinisterly as he declared that it was time to stock up. A few moments later, a girl who was working as a cashier was yawning. The establishment was equipped with CCTV. In the CCTV, Mo could be seen standing in front of the racks. 24 seconds later, a blurry image of Mo was captured on the CCTV while he was running. On the other hand, the girl behind the cash register was still yawning, as it was already past midnight. Suddenly, she was startled when a long receipt came out of the cash register in front of her. She looked at the receipt, wondering what was going on, and she mused if someone had bought something just moments ago. At the end of the receipt, the girl saw a note that was apologizing to her, telling her not to be scared, to go home quickly, and to be safe, and she found that it was a strange message. The girl was unaware that two men had just entered the building, as she was busy complaining that the first was the robbery, and currently she had a lunatic. The men were carrying guns. While the girl was lamenting that she had been really unlucky lately, one of the men apologized to her. He announced that it was robbery time and demanded that she hand over the money. The man was urging the girl to hurry up while calling him a bitch, and they were unaware that a white skin was approaching the building. Suddenly, the gun the man was holding started to freeze. The building started to freeze as the white skin was entering the building, and the man questioned why it suddenly felt cold. With the white skin's shadow looming over them, the other man alerted the other to look at the door. A white skin was standing over the door, and it had multiple eyes and mouths that were placed in different parts of its body. The man cursed as he queried the white skin what kind of monster it was. He was startled when his companion behind him started firing his gun at the white skin. The man started to shoot at the white skin like his companion, and they injured it, but the man swore as the white skin was still standing, and he voiced that it was invincible. He was horrified when he saw the white skin's hand was about to grab him. The white skin grabbed him like a doll. It started pulling the man's skin off his head, and the man couldn't do anything about it, nor could he even move. The white skin commented that it tastes terrible, and it managed to rip off the top part of the man's skin off his head. Meanwhile, the girl behind the counter was trembling with her phone in her hand, and she was urging herself to hurry up and take a picture. The girl caught it on video as the white skin chomped off the guy's head, and someone expressed their surprise. It was an old security guy, and he questioned the younger security guy with him if that is what the live streaming young people like, and the guy explained that it has been quite popular recently, but what he was watching was a short video. Suddenly, a red warning appeared on his phone, and as the old security guy inquired what was going on, and if it was the end of broadcast, the younger security guy clarified that it was not, and it seemed like an emergency message from the government. The alarm went off, calling the attention of all the citizens, and as the younger security guy pointed out to old Joe, the old security guy, that the alarm went off, old Joe observed that it looked like something had happened. On the other hand, Mo, who had returned to his apartment, heard the alarm and the announcement introducing themselves as the Department of Homeland Security and Logistics. Mo looked anxious as he acknowledged that it was starting. The announcement informed the citizens that the city was experiencing a cold wave for unknown reasons, and they were instructed to close their doors and windows, stay warm, and not go out. The cold wave was coming, and it first arrived in Brooklyn. It was already 9 seconds past 1 a.m. At Building 58 in the new district, in a regular apartment, the announcement to the citizens was still going on. As the announcement of the Department of Homeland Security and Logistics kept going, old Joe inquired what could get them involved, asserting that it must be something serious, and the younger security guy replied that it shouldn't be anything serious because the weather has been unusual lately. While the announcement was still going, requesting the citizens not to panic, a female doctor was casually smoking in her laboratory. On the other hand, Mo was working diligently in his room, and he was thinking that there wouldn't be any mishaps at that time. Meanwhile, multiple guys were ganging up on a man that was tied up, and someone who seemed to be their leader questioned how the man was and if he was still not talking. The face of the tied-up man was already swollen while he was bleeding from his nose, and he insisted that he really didn't know. The leader, who seemed to be Luo Dong, chuckled when he heard the man claim that he really didn't know. Luo Dong showed the man a picture of him with an unconscious, naked woman on the bed, and as he confronted the man about what it was, he tutted, accusing him of daring to drug the boss's daughter. The man looked so terrified, and he was stammering as he pleaded that he really didn't know at that time. Pulling out his knife, Luo Dong crouched down, and he advised the man to forget it because someone like him could only hope that God still had mercy on him. Terror filled the man's eyes as Luo Dong grabbed his hand and placed it flat on the floor. Luo Dong raised his knife. Chunking sounds could be heard, and blood splattered everywhere. Luo Dong was looking at some sort of organizer, and he was counting the items inside it. There were fingers neatly lined up inside the organizer, and as he counted that there were 6 in there, he noted that it was just right, and there were no mistakes. As the guys finished stuffing the man inside a bag, one of them queried Luo Dong how they should deal with the man, and as Luo Dong decreed that the sin of lust should be death by fire, he suggested that the shabby apartment has a boiler. Luo Dong commanded the guys to just throw the man into the boiler. A few moments later, the guys threw the bag into the boiler just as they were instructed, and one of them wished to rest in peace. As one of them closed the boiler door, he remarked that it looked quite old, and as he wondered if he was told that it would explode if they put a body in it, the other guy dismissed to stop talking nonsense because Luo Dong was still waiting for them. Suddenly, the guy who was closing the door paused, observing that something was not right. The boiler exploded, and it sent the guy flying. The other guy assisted the other guy up, scolding him and labeling him a jinx, but the guy appeared horrified as he looked up at the huge creature whose shadow was looming over them. On the other hand, someone was busy drilling screws into things. It was Mo, and as he sat on the floor, he remarked that the frame for cultivating crops was finally done. Looking at his current supplies, Mo considered that even if he didn't go out, he could hold on for a long time, but it was not enough. He was envisioning what he aimed to have as he contemplated that supplies would eventually run out, so sustainable self-sufficiency was the key. Mo was planning that his goal was to build a perfect survival room that is self-sufficient. As Mo checked the time, he realized that the freezing phenomenon had been going on for almost an hour, so he needed to speed up. He determined that it was the perfect time to accelerate because time is life. Suddenly, Mo detected someone knocking on his door, and he pondered who was knocking at that time. Mo was cautious as he opened the door, and he felt familiarity when he opened the door. It was old Joe with the younger security guy who knocked on the door, and he expressed regret for disturbing him. When he saw security, Mo queried what was happening, so he interrogated old Joe what was up. Mo was astonished when old Joe revealed that the broadcast just mentioned that the temperature outside suddenly dropped, but the heating was broken, and they were concerned that people wouldn't notice at night, so they came to remind everyone just to be safe. Mo acknowledged anxiety as he instantly recalled that something similar happened in the past. The heating malfunctioned at that time and wasn't repaired in time, and by the time he went to fix it, it was completely scrapped. He emphasized that they couldn't afford to repeat the same mistake that time, so it must be fixed, so he requested old Joe if he could take him to see it, as he should be able to fix it, and old Joe agreed that that would be beneficial. Mo left and closed the door to his apartment. A few moments later, while Mo was ascending by the staircase, old Joe probed him where he was heading, so Mo directed upstairs and inquired if the boiler room was not in that direction. Old Joe corrected the other way, and he stated that the apartment's boiler room is on the basement level, so they have to head that way. Mo recalled that the boiler room in the apartment was illegal, and Mrs. Fang mentioned it, so it should be upstairs. He appeared skeptical, and he questioned if he could be remembering it incorrectly. A few moments later, they arrived at the basement, and the two security officers were shivering. Mrs. Fang even complained that the basement was really cold. While old Joe guided Mo to the boiler, he observed the smoke looked a bit strange as it was like cold air. Mo began fixing the boiler, and after some time had passed, he concluded that it should already be fine. But then, as he examined his hand, he noticed the blue liquid that he got from touching the valve, and he recognized it, so he urged the security officers to wait. Two huge white skin arms appeared behind the younger security officer, and he was unaware of them as he inquired if there were any other problems. The white skin suddenly performed its hands together and crushed the younger security officer's head. As it seized the headless body of the security guy, the white skin boasted that the fingers were growing back. The white skin feasted on the security guy's body, and as blood erupted from its mouth, old Joe demanded what the hell it was while Mo was speculating how there could be white skin there. Old Joe exhibited horror as the white skin loomed over him. The white skin was about to execute its hands again and crush old Joe's head. Mo exclaimed when he saw it, and he immediately activated his skill. He hastened to grab old Joe. The two of them ducked, and they evaded the white skin's hand. Mo initiated a sprint away from the white skin, and he acknowledged that that was close as old Joe almost lost his head. Looking ahead, Mo noticed that the door was still open. He celebrated that it was great because as long as he sprinted at full speed, he could escape. But to his dismay, the white skin was still right behind him. Mo lamented why and how the white skin could keep up with his speed. He swore as the white skin was so near, and it was about to threaten his head off.
Mo wondered if he was being slowed down because he was carrying old Joe. He apologized to him, but he reasoned that no, he needed to get him out of there at least. He threw him towards the door. Old Joe inquired what was going on. He fell right in front of the door. Meanwhile, Mo looked behind him. The white skin lunged at him. He caught his breath. The white skin searched for fingers. As it muttered about the absence of fingers, Mo remarked that it looked like it really had something to do with old Joe. He questioned why and assumed that that couldn't be it, so he reminded himself to calm down and think things through. While he carried him around, the white skin managed to catch up. But without him, he outran it just fine. He considered whether there were specific conditions that disabled his powers. Suddenly, the white skin uttered fingertips. He concluded that those conditions had nothing to do with the white skin, but he speculated about old Joe. When he tossed him, he noticed something strange, and he sensed a similar wave of energy as with his powers. He analyzed what exactly the connection was when he noticed the rock shards. He saw the similar wave of energy surrounding them. He realized that that was it. In the last cycle, the white skins pushed humanity to extinction, and their first instinct was to run away. But things were different at that time. If he was right, it was time for the hunted to become the hunter. He raised his arm while holding the rock shard, and he let the wave of energy surround him. He looked intently at the white skin. He threw the rock and destroyed its body. He believed that he was right. His power affected those infected by his energy signature. As long as they were affected, they sped up. The increased velocity led to an increased kinetic force, and with enough velocity, even a tiny rock carried enough force to rival a railgun. Suddenly, blue blood fell to the ground. He was surprised when he noticed that it was coming from him. He questioned whether it was blue-colored blood. He puzzled over what was going on. He fell on his knees and coughed up a lot of blue blood. He collapsed right into the pool of blue blood on the ground. He acknowledged that it was so cold. As he lost consciousness, he saw old Joe calling for him. He felt glad he was all right, while old Joe reminded that it was no place to sleep, so he should open his eyes. While unconscious, there were many voices calling for him, which he recognized, and they requested that he wake up. Old Joe wondered how the situation was outside, and Dorothy replied that the wind was too strong, so they couldn't get him to the hospital, while a man mentioned that the door was frozen and it wouldn't hold against the ice. Old Joe insisted that they should find something to block it off because they would freeze to death if they didn't stop the wind and turn on the heater as well, while Dorothy pointed out that Lin Mo looked poisoned and questioned what happened down in the basement. Lin Mo noted that it was so cold, while Dorothy urged him to hang in there, and old Joe emphasized that he shouldn't start falling asleep because he was the guy who saved his life, and he hasn't even thanked him yet. He called Mrs. Fang, and he confessed that he was afraid Lin Mo was dead, but she instructed him not to say anything and to head upstairs to look for Dr. Zhu. Lai Mo remembered Mrs. Fang. A few moments later, Dr. Zhu excused herself. Old Joe encouraged that they were almost there, so Lai Mo should hang on, and he questioned how he was doing. Dr. Zhu instructed that he should set him down there. As he assured that Lin Mo would be all right, she advised that he should step outside because he would get in the way. He accepted that it was so cold. She commented that she couldn't believe that he was still alive with that body temperature, and she joked whether he was some kind of freezing man. He suffocated. A few moments later, Dr. Zhu recorded that for log 409, a male aged 20 to 25 appeared to be poisoned and was currently unconscious. For signs of life, he appeared to be stable, and his body temperature remained stable at below 10 degrees Celsius, and there was nothing out of the ordinary with his muscles and nerves. It fascinated her. The results were out, so they should take a look at the blood test. It intrigued her, as she had never seen something like that before. Blood samples collected from near his heart showed no irregularities, but farther out, there were substances turning his blood blue. She mentioned that she needed more time for further analysis, so for the time being, they would continue to monitor his condition. From a glance, one would think that those were the veins. However, upon closer inspection, it looked like some sort of allergic reaction. Suddenly, Lin Mo opened his eyes. She asked if he was awake, and he wondered what happened. She recommended that he not make any sudden movements for the time being, and he questioned who she was. She appeared amused by his question. She replied that she was just their regular licenseless back alley doctor, and for one reason or another, she couldn't tell him her real name, so he could call her Dr. Zhu. She requested that he tell her how he ended up like that, and he questioned what she meant by that. She explained that she had never seen symptoms like his before, and she requested that he tell her what exactly went down in the basement. She revealed that she had taken quite an interest in him. In Brooklyn, the current temperature was negative 29 degrees Celsius. The lowest recorded temperature for the human body was 13.7 degrees Celsius, and it was the lowest temperature ever recorded globally. Theoretically, when pushed to the limit, the human body could endure freezing temperatures. However, prolonged exposure to those conditions caused cellular damage, ultimately leading to death. Even a drop in the body's core temperature below 32 degrees Celsius could be fatal, causing a condition known as hypothermia. It was impossible for the human body to survive in a negative 29 degrees Celsius environment. let alone lower than 13.7 degrees Celsius. Dr. Zhu approved and permitted Lin Mo to let go. He needed to examine his body temperature. It was a miracle he was even alive, and he questioned what was going on. He considered whether it was because of his powers. He reasoned that it wasn't the time to dwell on that, as he needed to get back on track with his plan. Dr. Zhu identified what it was. Suddenly, Lin Mo slipped in a small puddle of water. She reminded that she warned him not to make any sudden movements as his body wasn't yet recovered. Though that wasn't her point, and she concluded that she had figured out what was wrong with him. She guessed whether he got superpowers, and he speculated how she knew. He couldn't waste time with her at the moment, so he challenged whether it was some kind of joke. But she argued that he shouldn't underestimate the observation skills of a doctor as she headed to the basement with ease. He calculated that if he activated his ability, he was sure he could get back even if he had to climb his way out. But he instantly coughed up blood. She inquired if he was alright, and he puzzled over what was going on. He reflected on why he couldn't speed up and why now of all times. He analyzed what was going to happen at that point, judging from the last cycle. Suddenly, Luo Dong walked along the hallway. He instructed his men to behave themselves in front of Dr. Zhu, and they acknowledged. They stood in front of apartment 509. It was Dr. Zhu's laboratory, and she could hear them knocking from the inside. Lin Mo was surprised. Meanwhile, she clicked her tongue. She urged him to hurry and get up, so he should give her his hand. He inquired what the matter was and who was out there, but she insisted that he should lie down. He questioned why it was so sudden, but she discouraged further questions. He needed to listen if he wanted to stay alive and follow her instructions. He should close his eyes, and no matter what he heard, he shouldn't move, and she confirmed if he understood. She opened the door. Luo Dong excused his disturbance. She demanded what he needed her for. He requested whether she minded if they talked inside, and she permitted him to proceed. He should state his business. As she asked what it was, he claimed that he heard the resident of room 409 was currently being treated there and he had business with him. Lin Mo recognized his voice. She explained that her patient passed away after being poisoned. He lamented that it was truly unfortunate. Lin Mo identified Luo Dong. He speculated if he didn't stop by only after the world froze over. He pondered why it was happening now of all times, and he resolved that if he could only use his speed up at that time, he would be able to kill him right there at that moment. Suddenly, Luo Dong noticed his eye twitch. He expressed appreciation for Dr. Zhu's hard work, but he questioned whether she was certain that Lin Mo was dead because he saw his eye twitch earlier, and proposed confirming that for her. She challenged what he meant and reaffirmed that she informed him he was dead. He wondered what would happen if he was faking it. He offered his apology in advance. She confronted him. She slapped his face. She challenged whether he was doubting her professionalism. One of his men warned that she shouldn't think she could disrespect Luo Dong and get away with it, while the other threatened that they would kill her. But Luo Dong intervened. He expressed his deepest apologies to her and admitted that he was out of line. He lit his lighter. He acknowledged that many of his boys owed her their lives, so there was no way he would be suspicious of her. He urged her to calm down and accepted that it was his fault. However, he reminded her not to forget who had been keeping her rundown back alley clinic alive, and demanded that she hurry up and give him an answer about that thing. She should think it through, but she dismissed him as wasting his time. He and his men exited the room. A few moments later, Dr. Zhu informed Lin Mo to get up, as it appeared that Luo Dong was gone. She was sure that he had a lot of questions at the moment. He agreed because Luo Dong had clear motives from the last cycle, but he questioned why he was trying to kill him immediately at that time and why she was covering for him. But he needed to ask one thing before he tried to figure things out. He asked where his clothes were, and she responded by questioning if that was the first thing he would ask her. Brooklyn's current temperature was negative 40 degrees Celsius. In the basement, one of Luo Dong's men remarked that back when he was younger, he used to watch his dad fix the boiler and wonder what would happen if he ended up a bum like him. But at that moment, he couldn't help but feel proud of what he did. The other man responded that there was no way. He insisted that if the weather outside wasn't pretty extreme at that moment, once it gets back to normal again, he wouldn't have to listen to that bum dad of his anymore. Luo Dong inquired if he really believed the weather would stabilize in a few days, and he apologized. Luo Dong explained that they receive public service announcements every 20 minutes, but currently, even the internet was down, so it seemed like even the government had given up. Perhaps that sudden cold wave was God's punishment for mankind. Old Joe stifled his laugh and replied that if that was the case, the Lord would punish a sinner like him first. Luo Dong clarified that he was just taking over as the manager of that rundown apartment building, and he questioned if he didn't believe he was building harmony by establishing order there. Old Joe countered if by order he meant kicking everyone out and forcing them to gather resources under the threat of him turning off the heater. Luo Dong challenged what was wrong with that and explained that they provided him with goods, and he offered them warmth and protection, so it was a fair trade in his opinion. Old Joe accused him of being a vampire. Luo Dong lamented that it was a shame that the resident of room 409 passed away, as he could have been another one to benefit from his protection. Old Joe questioned if Lin Mo was dead. On the other hand, Dr. Zhu inquired if he was done changing and instructed him to get over there when he was done. But she warned that she might have to wait a bit, and she pondered why he struggled to put on clothes as well. He demanded that she tell him what it was, and she probed how long he believed he had been unconscious for. He guessed if it was 6 hours, and she corrected that it was 6 days, in fact. He was surprised, and she disclosed that a lot happened during those 6 days. At that moment, Luo Dong was in control of that entire building's heating system, and he was demanding the residents provide him with resources in exchange for keeping their heat on. And there were already a few residents he forced out because of that. But going outside at that moment was no different from choosing to die, so maybe they felt like it would be the same no matter what happened. They would freeze to death either way. Lin Mo resolved that he should pay him back 100-fold. No matter what, Luo Dong would always be scum. He wondered if there was a way for his body to recover quickly. She snickered. She agreed to tell him but imposed her conditions because even if she was unlicensed, she was still running a clinic. And after all, profits had to be made. She confirmed if he was fine with that. He inquired what her terms were and affirmed that he's fine as long as it was within his capability, to which she acknowledged that it was very good. She expressed her desire to study him and emphasized that she would be the only one allowed to do that. But he shouldn't worry because she wouldn't ask him to put his life at risk or anything like that. It was exactly as she mentioned before, she had taken an interest in him. He accepted that it was a deal. She revealed that his blood contained a unique substance, but she still didn't know what to make of it. What she confirmed was that those substances absorbed and stored heat through radiation, and from that, it was converted into energy to help sustain the human body, and it only activated when his body lost temperature, and until it absorbed a certain amount of heat, his body would be stuck in the low temperature state. In simpler terms, his body suddenly gained another substance that allowed it to store energy, and she supposed he could say his current weakened state was due to hunger, so he clarified if he just needed to fill himself up. She affirmed that it was right, but he would need a lot to replenish his energy, and she didn't have that for him. He assured her that she didn't need to worry, as he had that covered. A few moments later, he descended to his apartment. He acknowledged that it was a good thing he stocked up during that shopping spree at the supermarket. As long as he could make it back home, that would be a win. He stood in front of his door. He unlocked it using his fingerprint. He was surprised when he entered his room. He suspected if they cut off the heating to his room and feared that he was really going to freeze to death at that rate. Luo Dong converted his room into a frozen compartment. A few moments later, he located the high-energy snacks. They were chocolate bars. He couldn't help but be overwhelmed by horrible memories, so he figured that he should probably swap to a different brand. He took a bite of the chocolate bar. There was no effect, so it appeared that it was not enough and he would just have to eat more. As he munched on the chocolate bars, he experienced a weird feeling. It felt like something in his body was calling out for more energy and more heat, and it was bad. He couldn't hold back any longer. Suddenly, one of Luo Dong's men wondered why the room 409 door was open. He revealed that their boss was planning on cutting Lin Mo's finger off to bypass the fingerprint lock, but it opened by itself, and the other observed that he got a lot stocked up. Lin Mo smirked when he noticed them. One of the men questioned who he was, while the other inquired if he was the one who opened the door. Meanwhile, Dr. Zhu was almost done with linking up the simulated model. She concluded that it was alright and that she should see what secrets his body held. But she noticed that there was overactive stimulation that was affecting his mental capacity. It was bad if he consumed a large amount of sugar. On the other hand, one of the men declared that he didn't care who he was because the stuff in that room was theirs, while the other demanded if he hurt them. He just smiled at them. Dr. Zhu feared that he would go berserk. 72 hours ago, Dr. Zhu inquired what exactly happened down there for Lin Mo to turn out like that. She questioned what it was. She remarked that it was interesting. She wondered if there was a camera too. She muttered that it looked like she would have to head to the CCTV room to figure out the rest. Suddenly, Luo Dong utilized the broadcast system and queried if that thing was on. He summoned the attention of all residents. He urged that they make sure to properly allocate their resources and not waste anything. Mrs. Fang listened to his announcement. On the other hand, his men dragged old Joe into the basement. One of them muttered that he sure could take a beating, while the other insisted that he should do less talking and more moving. And he reminded if he remembered that their boss told them to watch the boiler. Luo Dong declared that from that point onwards, the residents of that entire building must make a deposit to him, and in exchange, he would grant them the right to stay warm. One of the residents questioned if it was some kind of prank and what old Joe was even doing, to which another resident noted that it certainly didn't sound like him. Luo Dong warned that he would help them all understand the seriousness of the situation. He reached out for the heater switch. He mentioned that they would just have to activate energy-saving mode. He cackled maniacally. Meanwhile, Lin Mo spoke to himself in his consciousness. He wondered if he hates him. A prisoner version of himself looked puzzled. He asked if he hates Luo Dong. His eyes turned red as he referred to Luo Dong. He confirmed. He seized one of Luo Dong's men by the throat. His body burned. Lin Mo's eyes turned red, the same as the veins that appeared on his skin. He recalled how Luo Dong mentioned if he knew that they say human meat tastes pretty similar to beef, and he joked that he doubted he would be eating beef anytime soon. He flung the man out the door. He shattered the railings by the hallway as he crashed against them. He fell into the lobby. The residents were horrified when they witnessed him. His meat was burnt, and his bones were showing. The residents exclaimed that he came from the 4th floor. Meanwhile, the remaining guy of Luo Dong pondered what just happened. He speculated who or what the hell Lin Mo was and if he was an alien. But they were a long way from Nevada. He questioned what was with the crimson aura. He realized that the situation was bad and he couldn't take him in a fight. But it was either fight or die. Lin Mo remained unfazed. He visualized Luo Dong, who stated that it was what strength rules meant. He moved effortlessly and dodged the guy's attack. The guy realized that he was fast. He was clearly riling him up. The guy swung his golf club at him, but he missed again. He swung one more time, but he dodged it effortlessly again. Lin Mo imagined Luo Dong again, who insulted that he was a weakling and he should stop running. His crimson aura intensified. He pulled back his arm as the guy charged towards him again. His eyes honed in on him. In an instant, he cleaved the guy's body in half with just a swing of his arm. Suddenly, Dr. Zhu arrived, but he imagined that it was Chen Ming who summoned him. He looked over his shoulder. He was surprised to see her. He questioned how he was shot. Dr. Zhu assured that he shouldn't worry because it was just an insulin shot. His crimson aura faded, and he lost consciousness. She explained that it was designed to break down the excessive heat in his body. She was surprised when she saw what was inside his room. She inquired what it was. Hunger was the catalyst for human misdeeds, and they traded their children for food in the turbulence of war. Those were recurring events throughout human history. But with the advent of agriculture and its advancements, society began to stabilize. Yet, hunger never truly left them. And in that world encased in ice, there was no place for agriculture. Hunger, the catalyst of human sin, reared its ugly head once more, and the darkest chapters of history began to repeat themselves. But there were always exceptions. Dr. Zhu remarked that she couldn't believe she had to knock Lin Mo out again after he just woke up, and she honestly felt bad for doing that. But she inquired what was with those plants. She picked a tomato. She took a bite. She appeared pleased by the taste. She noted that they were fresh. It should be enough to feed everyone in that building. On the other hand, Matt and Dorothy went out to gather resources. Suddenly, her stomach growled. He wondered what was wrong and if she would be able to hold on, and she responded that she should. She affirmed that she should be fine. He mentioned that she should wait a second because he believed he had another chocolate bar around him. She insisted that he didn't need to do that. He muttered that the bastard nearly took it from them and it should still be in his pocket. She reminded that he didn't need to look anymore and questioned if he forgot. She recalled that they gave the chocolate bar to their baby girl earlier. He acknowledged that it was true. He agreed that she was right and admitted that he completely forgot about that. He recognized that he wasn't of much use. Suddenly, his head was completely obliterated. She was horrified. A white skin grabbed his body. It took a bite at his torso. Dorothy stood frozen as she watched the blood splatter across her face. The white skin claimed that a woman was delicious. She wondered what it was. Suddenly, Cobbin summoned her and reminded that it was no time for daydreaming. She looked towards where the voice was coming from. He urged that she should get over there. Over to him. She should start running if she wanted to live. She immediately ran towards the building. The white skin reached out to grab her. She was terrified. She was blown away by the force when the white skin hit the snow. She tumbled in the snow and fell on her face. She was injured, and it loomed above her. Tears trickled down her eyes that were filled with horror. Meanwhile, Cobbin lit up a Molotov. He threw it towards the white skin. It shrieked in pain. Dorothy shielded herself from the embers that were blown towards her. The white skin complained that it was hot and it hated hot. She assumed that it stopped chasing her. It was great that there was an elevator and that she was saved. But she was horrified when she sensed that it crawled into the building. It declared that it was not hot and liked it. She pleaded for the elevator to hurry up. It noticed her. She cursed that the stupid elevator should hurry up. Cobbin suddenly instructed that she should quickly close her eyes. She questioned why. He turned on the bright, blinding lights. The white skin whined that it hated bright lights. Cobbin raised his hand in the air while holding his guitar pick. He exclaimed that it smelled like teen spirit. He played his guitar. Its sound echoed through the speakers. The white skin protested that it hated rock garbage.
Her name was Dorothy Perez, and when she was little, she used to picture herself saving lives in a white coat, chasing that dream of becoming a doctor. She got older just like everyone does, and the world didn't wait around for her. She ended up a nurse, close enough to her dream to sting a little, but she carried it with quiet pride anyway. She met Matt somewhere along that road. He flushed red the instant he spotted her, awkward and endearing in the same breath. She went pink too and threw him a small smile that made the air between them hum. After that, the two of them got married. No surprises there. Later, Maggie came along, tiny lungs screaming her way into their world. Sometime after, they hauled boxes into a new apartment that smelled like paint and promise. Then came the part everyone knew too well. The world froze solid, gangs prowled the halls, and monsters filled the dark corners. After all the chaos she had already survived, she couldn't help wondering what kind of madness was happening now. The white skin complained, calling everything irritating and mocking rock trash, while that guy with the guitar somehow pinned the beast down with pure noise. Dorothy scoffed and muttered that it had to be the most ridiculous thing she'd ever seen. The loud thrashing music stopped all at once. The white skin groaned again that both the man and his racket were unbearable. Corbin stood there panting hard, spent from the fight and the music both. He slammed his boot on a button and let the guitar roar again. All at once, massive steel bars dropped from above the white skin. It reached out toward Corbin even as the metal came crashing down. The bars crushed and skewered its body in one heavy shuddering moment. In seconds, it vanished under a heap of cold steel. Dorothy stared while it twitched beneath the wreckage. She asked if that was it, if it was really over. She whispered that all of it was finally done. Her whole body shook as tears fell hard and fast. She pressed her face into her palm and wept. Corbin stretched out a hand toward her. He murmured that everything was all right now. After a while, the noise faded and the air stilled. Dorothy huddled near a barrel fire, chasing warmth with numb fingers. Her eyes looked hollow as she stared at her locket. Inside was their family photo, Matt's face stained red with blood. Corbin muttered that he might finally rest in peace. He lowered himself beside her, quiet but steady. He recited softly about dust to dust and ashes to ashes. Then he added that mourning the dead mattered, but guarding the living mattered too, and he pressed her if he was wrong. She blinked at him, uneasy and unsure what to make of it. He rubbed his neck and muttered an apology for sounding weird. He hesitated, words stalling halfway out. He meant to give his name, but Dorothy jumped in first, introducing herself instead. He quickly replied that she could just call him Corbin. She gave him a small thank you. He answered that she was welcome, casual and low. She asked if he was also heading out to scavenge supplies. He explained that things were a bit tangled for him. He told her to wait a second and let him show her what he meant. He came all the way from Seattle chasing a friend, but the cold wave locked him down as soon as he arrived. That friend, the one with the hat, was from his old high school band. She mentioned that he looked like the guy who used to live in 409. Suddenly, he turned his head and demanded to know what was happening. They spotted a wild stir in the snow ahead. Corbin barked out a question, trying to figure out what those things were. He caught sight of a massive white skin and smaller ones shaped like horses. Dorothy's nerves spiked instantly. She blurted that the direction they were heading was straight toward the apartment. Meanwhile, Linmo snapped his eyes open. He tried to remember when he had blacked out again and realized he was staring straight into a woman's chest. He blinked hard, confused about what exactly was going on. Dr. Joe worked behind his head, fiddling with some kind of device. She remarked that he was awake, saying it was good since she had already set the thing on him, and he couldn't stop wondering what she meant by that. He demanded to know what was happening, and she replied that it was nothing serious. She just strapped a safety measure on him. He frowned, wondering if that so-called safety meant the collar around his neck. Collars had been around since forever, one of the oldest ornaments humanity ever came up with, and their meanings never stayed the same for long. Back then, it screamed slavery, a mark that shouted control and ownership. Now, though, it could easily pass as an adult's private toy. Dr. Joe casually remarked that Lin Mo shouldn't freak out since what was strapped around his neck definitely wasn't for anything like that. He blinked, thrown off, figuring he wouldn't even have gone there if she hadn't planted the thought herself. He reminded her that the only deal he'd signed up for was to be her research subject. She nodded, confirming that he was indeed one, and explained that the collar was simply a unique monitoring device. She leaned in and checked if he still remembered what she told him about the stuff inside his body. She mentioned that it could absorb heat and store it like a living furnace. From what she was seeing now, though, it apparently did a bit more than that, and that collar had been specially crafted to back her theory. Whenever his blood sugar shot too high, it triggered another form of that thing, and the collar would flare from blue to red. He pressed her, wanting to know what she meant and what another state even was supposed to be. She coolly asked if he remembered what happened 20 minutes earlier. He froze up, blank. He muttered that he couldn't recall anything. She brushed it off, saying it didn't matter, that she'd sort it out herself. It was, after all, part of their research anyway. He couldn't shake the feeling that the woman always had some invisible chain on him. Still, curiosity clawed at him. He needed to know what was really happening. He'd uncover it sooner or later. When that time came, he swore he'd be the one in control. Out of nowhere, Dr. Joe hit a button. Lin Mo flinched hard in his chair. He squinted, trying to figure out what it was. He caught sight of the glucose feed and figured the concentration was insanely high. Dr. Joe commented that he was making a big deal out of it and said they should log the readings first. He was getting nervous, wondering what she had done to him this time. Then she suddenly mentioned that she'd almost forgotten something. He demanded to know what she was planning as she crouched right in front of him. She set down a small potted plant between them. He just stared, totally thrown off, trying to guess if it was even a real plant. In a flash, a glowing red ring flared across his iris. A violent surge of red energy blasted out from his body. He snarled that she dared to trick him. Out of nowhere, a creature's voice broke in, calling him rather entertaining. He darted aside, dodging the equipment flying through the room. He moved straight toward the plant. It grew taller as he neared it, bursting with life and suddenly heavy with fruit. The creature asked if he was right in thinking that Lin Mo could finally see him now. Lin Mo stammered, demanding to know what was happening. The creature coolly stated that they were meeting again. Lin Mo's eyes widened as he asked if the creature was him. He glanced at Dr. Joe and admitted that he'd thought he was hallucinating, but the creature explained that she couldn't hear him at all right now. Lin Mo frowned, checking for any reaction, asking if she really couldn't hear. He demanded to know if that was the creature's doing. The creature replied that it was sort of his fault, but not entirely. Lin Mo pressed further, asking what that meant, who the creature really was, and why he looked exactly like him. The creature explained that strictly speaking, they were one and the same. After all, he alone couldn't have reached that level. He tugged his hood down, revealing his face. He added that maybe that look would help jog Lin Mo's memory. Lin Mo froze, recognition dawning. The creature asked if things were coming back to him now. Lin Mo quietly admitted that he had been the creature back then. The creature affirmed it. Right then, pieces of the parasitic organism inside him surfaced at the base of his neck. The creature declared that his power and his uncanny ability to come back from death were all thanks to him. So the two of them had better start getting along. The National Security and Logistics Bureau worked as a branch under the National Security Agency. It went by NSAL, sometimes called the National Logistic Agency, and it stood among the rare few departments that could still run on their own long after other government arms had crumbled. It even had its own medical division, ran its own administrative sections, packed its own military units. It might as well have been the last scaffold of civilization left standing once the whole system went under. Inside a lab, Barbara turned towards Xiao Luo and pressed if the network still hadn't come back online. Xiao Luo muttered that she'd been asked that exact thing 28 times in just 2 days. Barbara clicked her tongue in irritation. Xiao Luo mentioned that the information department blamed hardware issues, but they couldn't reach the engineers, and everyone knew what it looked like outside. Most of their data systems were limping along on primitive backups, so Barbara waved it off and told her she understood. Barbara Ripley, the National Logistic Agency Biochemistry Department leader and a level IV agent, remarked bluntly that it was just bureaucrats tossing the blame around again. She followed by asking if the report was finished, and Xiao Luo replied that it was almost there. Barbara said that was good enough for now and told her to send it to her first, and Xiao Luo asked about the remaining sections. Barbara gave her a look, saying she couldn't be serious because the baldy wouldn't bother reading it properly anyway. The situation out there was burning too fast for paperwork to matter. Moments later, Barbara could tell they were bickering again, while Frank complained that their national logistic agency didn't have time for pointless debates. Frank Kordick, head of the Strategic Decision Department and a Level 2 agent, declared that first came climate change, then cyber attacks, leaving all communication lines useless. He added that their frontline agents had gone dark for 48 hours, and that didn't even count the unactivated ones. They were in a war, and it was time to move. War never changed, and neither did the kind of soldiers he led. Barbara, barely keeping her temper, went for the verbal gut punch. She told him to cut the political correctness routine already. Not long after, Barbara led Frank into the Biochemical Defense Laboratory's observation room and asked what he made of what he saw and if he now understood why she was anxious. He looked completely stunned. Barbara said the thing had been discovered near the bunker. The white skins spoke, claiming they were Shell. Xiao Luo explained that from observation, the creature had mutated from a human. Frank demanded if it was still human, and Barbara pointed out that he should look at what hung around its neck. He narrowed his eyes and spotted it. Seeing the dog tag, he muttered that it belonged to one of the field operations guys. He pushed for details, and Barbara told him it likely happened before the network crashed. They'd detected a missing agent signal moments before the system went dark, close to the bunker. But when the security team found him, there were no life signs. From pre-crash data, they confirmed he'd been an activated operative, codename Silver Hammer. Yet, 24 hours later, the corpse in the morgue mutated into exactly what he was staring at now. Xiao Luo added that before the network blackout, the CIA had shared data confirming the creature had been tracked before the cold wave hit, along with other strange anomalies. Barbara pointed at the screen, saying the footage came from that same supermarket and showed the first monster, temporarily labeled Shell. The first psychic, tentatively called Number Zero. Back in the apartment, Lin Mo sat there trying to wrap his head around what was happening. 1 second ago, it had been some kind of bug. Now, it had shifted into a stunning girl standing before him. The creature smiled in a way that made him freeze. She remarked that humans always got shy seeing the opposite sex unclothed, and he wondered if it was all some illusion. He noticed the world around him hung still, like time frozen. The creature told him he could think of it that way. He questioned if she could hear his thoughts. She replied that they were already merged, after all, and he muttered that her explanation sounded bizarre. She said he could see her only because Dr. Zhou had pumped enough sugar into him to wake her consciousness, and that what he saw was nothing more than a projection in his head. He mentioned that the doctor claimed the substance inside him was her, and he pressed if that other state meant she'd been activated. She clarified that technically, those were her blood. It was that blood that granted him his powers. He pressed her on why she had to parasitize his body. She teased him for being such a curious little creature. They weren't human, she explained, and they didn't belong to this dimension. They needed to inhabit the bodies of native beings in each dimension to even begin to comprehend it. Lin Mo scoffed and asked what kind of setup that was, saying it sounded like some bad novel premise. She explained that her race didn't have what humans called names because they couldn't define themselves. To them, time meant nothing. It didn't move straight. They drifted through dimensions since birth. That was their gift and their curse. Since they couldn't directly interfere with the matter of any world, they could only inhabit intelligent life from other dimensions to use their hosts to tear through the shackles that held them. She admitted humans probably couldn't grasp that. They wanted to hear their names, to see castles built from time, but she questioned how they could prove they even existed when they couldn't alter reality. Lin Mo asked if that was some sort of existential philosophy, and remarked that she sounded lonely. She blinked at him, thrown off. She wondered aloud if he pitied her, asking if that was what humans called empathy. She said that choosing humans as Shell had been the right call. His expression struck her as endearing, but she warned him with a soft smile that from the moment they fused, he'd been marked by the Shell. Meanwhile, the white skin stood before the apartment building. They halted, scanning the place like predators taking measure. The massive one declared that it could smell food inside. There was an enemy waiting. The white skin crawled lazily up the walls of their apartment. Lin Mo pressed the creature on what she meant by Shell, and she teased that he'd figure it out soon enough. If he ever needed anything, he just had to come find her. And he already knew how. She clapped her hands together like ending a deal. Time inside the room jerked back into motion. The flask was already plummeting toward the floor. At that same moment, a head sliced clean from the mouth hit the tiles. A white skin was chewing through a man while the woman in the room bolted in horror. But when she burst into the hallway, more white skins were out there tearing people apart. One resident bolted down the stairs, chased hard by the white skins. He was heading for the boiler room. He spat a curse and demanded how the damn door locked itself now of all times. He froze when the chill of their presence crawled up behind him. They tore into him with such violence they smashed the door clean off. Some of the white skins instantly turned toward the men guarding Josh. One of them barked what the hell that thing was. Josh stared as the white skins ripped into the men right before him. He recognized those things. He wondered if it was the same monster from before. Then he caught sight of patches on their bodies turning a deep, wet red. He figured they were draining blood. They hadn't spotted him yet, so he needed an out fast. Breaking that rope without tools would be hell. And the pillar had no edges to help. Looked like he'd have to fall back on those dirty tricks from his younger days. He grabbed his thumb, then popped it out of the joint. He yanked his hand free from the restraint. He figured it was lucky those old injuries made his joint slip easy by now. Since they hadn't noticed him yet, he had to sneak out another way. Still, he couldn't just run off empty-handed. He needed to reach the security room. The safe there had weapons. Good thing those dumb thieves still hadn't realized that it was a weapons locker. But then, his gut dropped when one of the white skins turned its gaze on him. He swore under his breath, "Maldita sea." Meanwhile, Dr. Joe remarked that just as she suspected, those plants reacted to his power, sprouting at crazy speed, and Lin Mo pressed if she could undo that thing already. She admitted that while it was true he couldn't keep using his ability too long or he'd crash hard, she'd gathered almost all the data she needed, and he told her to hurry and help him end it then. Out of nowhere, she wondered what that sound was. Something hammered on her door, fast and vicious. She demanded what was going on while Lin Mo's nerves kicked up. He wondered if it was a white skin. Suddenly, one crashed through the ceiling into the room. He recognized it instantly. The creature leaned in close and murmured that it was the shell. He demanded why she was still hanging around. Before he could finish, she pressed a finger to his lips to hush him. She told him this wasn't the time to get stuck on that. If he didn't move soon, that woman was dead. He muttered why every woman around him had to be so damn difficult. He apologized to Dr. Joe, then excused himself. He dodged hard as the white skin lunged for him. It crashed through the medical crates. He slid across the floor, stopping short. He called out if she was okay. He figured she could pull that kind of face too. Dr. Joe remarked that it was pretty wild seeing his ability that close. Right then, the white skin crawled from the crates and fixed on them again. She demanded what it was, and he asked if it was white skin or a shell, before admitting he didn't know, just that it was deadly. She flinched when he addressed her directly. He told her to let him take care of that thing. Dr. Joe remarked that even if he already knew, she still wanted to remind him not to overuse his abilities, and Lin Mo replied with an easy, "Sure." He then remembered he'd been meaning to bring it up. He mentioned that although her methods might look kinda awkward, judging by how things turned out, she really had helped him a lot, so he gave her his thanks. She froze for a second. She then cursed and snapped if this was seriously the time to talk about that. He replied that he'd handle it after they cleared out those small fries. He promised to give her a proper thanks then. Suddenly, more white skins crashed through the ceiling. He flinched in surprise. He figured it might be some kind of coordinated strike from them. He figured one was manageable, but that could easily drop him into a weakened state again. Dr. Joe pressed what was wrong and remarked that she was curious how he planned to thank her, and he tossed back that she might have to wait a bit for that. All the white skins lunged at him together. He figured he'd have to face them head on. He swung his arms and blocked every blow coming his way. Meanwhile, Dr. Joe tracked his stats on her tablet. She commented that if that was how it was, they might as well see how far his limit went. On his end, Lin Mo figured that judging from past runs, if he kept using acceleration non-stop, he'd definitely end up weakened again before finishing them. But there was a fix. He just needed to use it only when it mattered. That way, he could dodge cleanly, even without staying in acceleration. Same trick applied for attacking. He could fight barehanded, as long as he accelerated his fist to a certain level. He could launch a supersonic sonic boom that way. The white skins' bodies tore apart under the crushing force. He then taunted the others, asking what was wrong and if they were already scared. He grinned that he was only getting started. Dr. Joe observed that although calorie burn hadn't dropped, the ability use had become more efficient. It now burned less than 10%. That was interesting. She then called out to her test subject. She urged that she could let loose with that move. He noted that, as he guessed, she'd been monitoring his vitals the whole time. The white skin suddenly rushed him again while his attention slipped. He muttered that she was a captivity-obsessed quack. He exhaled, steam fogging in the cold air. Blue veins bulged across his chest and neck. They pulsed along his arms too. His status read 83%. Dr. Joe remarked that it looked like he'd gotten a real handle on his abilities. He glanced over the strange reactions on his body. She followed up that there was a new question now. He clearly knew plenty about those things. He should spill everything he knew. Meanwhile, down in the boiler room, the white skin that had jumped Josh sat in a bloody puddle. Josh lay unconscious. He suddenly blinked awake. He wondered what the hell happened and why there was blood everywhere. He then spotted the crowbar in his grip, buried in the white skin's chest. He wondered what just went down. He replayed the moment when it leaped at him. He'd seen the crowbar lying next to him right before he was about to get torn apart. He figured without that, he'd have been toast. If those freaks came again, he might not be that lucky. He jumped when his phone rang and muttered if the network wasn't supposed to be dead. An unknown number flashed on the screen. He picked up, and the caller greeted him as Josh Castillo. Then they asked if they should be calling him Mr. Curved Blade. Lin-Mo mentioned that it was all he knew, though in his head, he figured there was no way he'd talk about dying once and getting tossed back in time. Dr. Joe remarked that it matched what she already suspected and, if there was nothing else, asked him to help her zip up. He blinked and demanded what she was up to. She explained it was a hazardous environment suit from her old workplace, just a prototype with flaws, while he pressed her about why she was suddenly changing clothes. She gestured at the ceiling and told him to look. Those white skins had crawled through the maintenance ducts earlier, and the heating pipes ran there too, likely wrecked on the way, so she pointed out the chill and asked if he hadn't noticed. Then came a sharp knock at the door. They opened it. Maggie stood outside. Dr. Joe muttered if it was a kid, while Lin-Mo recalled that she lived next door. She bolted off, and as Lin-Mo shouted for her to slow down, Dr. Joe grumbled that this was exactly why she hated kids. But Lin-Mo froze in horror when the hallway came into view. Blood smeared the floor, and Maggie stood ahead, pointing toward a corner. They rushed after her and found the other tenants' bodies. Lin-Mo wondered aloud if they'd been shot. He turned to Maggie, warning that it was dangerous here. Then he recognized Josh. The man lay sprawled, drenched in blood. A curse ran through Lin-Mo's head, realizing Josh was gone too. That same Josh from his past life, the good guy who shared food with everyone, had died at the hands of those white skins again. Maggie clung to his hand, pointing toward Josh's limp body. Lin-Mo muttered that in the apocalypse, kind souls always met ugly ends. But Josh's hand twitched and grabbed his. Lin-Mo exclaimed that the corpse moved. Josh rasped that he wasn't dead yet and still owed him a drink. Out of nowhere, Maggie grabbed Dr. Joe's hand. She asked if she was a doctor. She explained that her mom said doctors wore red crosses, and Dr. Joe had one too, so she begged her to help Uncle Josh. Dr. Joe paused in thought. She muttered that she'd make an exception and treat him for free this time. She asked how he'd ended up like this, and Josh replied that it was a long story. After leaving the boiler room, he'd headed for the security office, but the ground floor was crawling with monsters. He climbed the fire escape, gathering a few survivors along the way, but as more monsters came, they kept climbing higher. He reluctantly recounted what followed. Luo Dong had opened fire. He blew a tenant's head apart. The white skins tore into the body instantly. Josh roared at him, demanding what the hell he was doing. Luo Dong sneered that he was buying time with the weaklings. He fired again, killing more tenants. He declared that survival of the fittest was God's rule since creation. He pulled the trigger once more. Josh threw himself in front of Maggie to shield her. After that, the bastard kept climbing, fighting till his last breath. Dr. Joe noted that he was lucky the bullet hadn't hit anything major, but he was bleeding too much, so they needed a secure spot fast. Then Lin-Mo mentioned Luo Dong. Josh tensed and asked what he planned to do. Lin-Mo glanced back, saying nothing. Meanwhile, the other tenants had begged Luo Dong to wait, reminding him they were human too. He sneered that they were weaklings. It worked out fine for him though. The bodies he left would stall the monsters nicely. He figured the old warehouse was probably the safest place left. He wondered if there were any supplies inside. Then, A chill ran up his spine as he sensed Lin Mo behind him. Lin Mo remarked that they met again. He uttered his name through clenched teeth, fury burning in his voice. Luo Dong stammered, asking if he wasn't supposed to be dead. Lin Mo dodged every bullet while rushing straight at him. He sliced off his left leg in one clean swing, then his right arm. He clamped a hand around his face till the pressure made the man's eyes bleed. Luo Dong gasped, asking why. He sputtered that they had no feud. Lin Mo repeated the words coldly, saying that was right. Those things hadn't happened yet for him. After the resurrection, instead of revenge, he'd wasted his effort building a safe house in this nightmare. It was laughable, and innocence had died because of it. It burned him. But the rage wasn't only for that man. It was also for himself, his foolish, soft-hearted self. He torched the body. He hurled it off the building. From that point on, he vowed, every trespass would face instant, merciless vengeance. Because in this frozen apocalypse, mercy was extinct. Josh and Maggie were chilling by the barrel fire. Dr. Joe mentioned that the spot looked like some old warehouse the landlord once used, but the only things worth a damn were a few leftover planks. She then threw a glance at Lin Mo. He was replaying the moment he dropped Luo Dong off the building. He was stuck wondering why, even after getting revenge, it still felt hollow. Out of nowhere, Dr. Joe asked what had him so deep in thought. She remarked that she couldn't tell if he had history with that bastard or if people with powers were just wired to be reckless. But at least, she admitted, she appreciated him for taking that bastard out. He pressed her if she had something against that guy too. She recalled how Luo Dong murdered her mother while she hid inside a closet. Lin Mo muttered that he wouldn't pry further. After they entered that room, it was relatively safe, though the place had always been a storage space with no heating. From how it was laid out, there should have been heating pipes installed once. Josh was injured, and with kids like Maggie around, relying only on barrel heat wasn't an option. And the white skins outside were breaking in almost everywhere. They had to reinforce the room, and the junk in the warehouse should be enough for that. To get the heating back, they'd have to head down to the basement, and Josh pointed out that the whole building was crawling with those things. But without fixing the heat, they'd freeze. Right on cue, Maggie sneezed over and over. Lin Mo muttered that sitting there was just waiting to die, and Josh mentioned he had an idea. A few minutes later, clanging echoed through the garbage chute. Lin Mo crawled out from it. He grumbled that Josh's grand plan was literally the garbage chute, but the sight in front of him made him freeze. He wondered if those were white skins tangled with the residents' bodies. He figured they were forming a nest. Then, hearing more clanging, he tensed up, thinking it might be more white skins. But he blinked when Dr. Joe popped out of the chute instead. He complained that she was blocking his way. She shot back that he should move his hand then. A white skin suddenly stepped into the room and she quickly hushed him. It scanned the area. Luckily, its back was turned and they darted off to hide. Dr. Joe whispered what that thing was, and while Lin Mo muttered that he didn't know, he demanded to know why she was even there. She reminded him that Josh should have told him the boiler switch needed 2 people to pull it off. He was already close to slipping into that weakened state and could have collapsed alone. Suddenly, the white skin turned their way, and she clamped a hand over her mouth. Lin Mo studied the creature and muttered that it wasn't like the others, way too fast, and with what little strength he had left, he knew he'd lose in a straight fight. According to Josh, the white skins weren't just eating people. They were draining blood, and some even stored it. Those pipes looked like they were channeling blood somewhere, and he wondered where. Meanwhile, Maggie asked what that was. Josh froze as he looked out the window. Massive white skins with open jaws twisted around the buildings. One sat on the ground, its stomach swollen with blood. Corbin muttered that the huge thing should be dead, and Dorothy said she didn't know, but at least it didn't seem ready to attack. Then, blinking lights flashed by the window, and he asked if it was Morse code. She blinked and asked what that meant, and he explained it was a pattern of signals, on and off, that translated to letters, numbers, or symbols. Josh quietly muttered that he hoped whoever was out there understood, but prayed they wouldn't come in. Dorothy frowned and asked what it said. Corbin said he only caught part of it, but that it seemed like an invitation. She pressed if he was sure, and he nodded, saying he was certain, and that her daughter was waiting. Josh snapped that they shouldn't come inside. Meanwhile, Lin Mo muttered that their destination was right there, but that monster was blocking the path. If nothing else worked, they'd have to force their way through. Then the white skin twitched toward a clanging sound from the vents. Lin Mo exhaled, relieved it got distracted by the earlier noise. Dr. Joe muttered that up close, those creatures looked like they were built from smaller white skins. He gritted that of course they were, and mixed with human bodies too, just imagining it was revolting. Neither of them noticed the new white skin forming behind them. It hissed sharply. Then it jammed a hand into its gut. It yanked out its own intestines. Those intestines morphed into a blade. It swung the blade toward them. Lin Mo froze at the sickeningly familiar feeling. He bolted toward Dr. Joe the instant he caught sight of it, but it moved so damn fast he had to burn his skill just to keep up. He threw himself in front of her, taking the hit meant for her. She grabbed him immediately to steady him. He groaned that it was unreal. This thing was actually faster than him. That monster was nothing like the other whiteskins. Lin Mo gritted his teeth, trying to keep it together through the pain while staring down the white skin. He remarked that it wasn't just any ordinary white armor. Then the white skin twisted its head around. Its focus locked onto Dr. Joe. He wondered if it was targeting her, and why it would. The white skin lunged forward in a blur. Lin Mo shoved Dr. Joe out of the way. He couldn't dodge in time and caught the hit straight on. He cursed inside, grumbling that even he couldn't keep up with such ridiculous speed. They couldn't keep this up any longer. If they did, he figured both he and Dr. Joe would end up dead. He cursed again in his mind, questioning if this was how he'd die a second time. Then, out of nowhere, the creature urged that they should run. She pressed him, saying wasn't survival instinct what all living things shared. She reminded him that in that merciless frozen world, there was no such thing as compassion. The world treated everyone the same. Him or that woman didn't matter. But he snapped back, refusing flatly. If he bolted now, he demanded what would make him any different from Luo Dong. He admitted that the frozen world might have no mercy, but that didn't mean they had to throw away their humanity just to stay alive. She went quiet, caught off guard. He muttered that if she were in his body, she'd feel it too. The unbearable ache and trembling in the chest when an innocent dies. That pain and trembling, he said, was the cry of humanity, proof they were born human. He recalled how a fossilized femur with healed marks showed that 10,000 years ago, primitives already helped the injured. And 10,000 years later, human civilization stood because of that. So right then, only one thought filled his head. The creature's nerves suddenly burst from the wound on his back. He declared that if he had that power, then he would damn well use it. The device around his neck cracked and sparked as the creature clung to it. The white skin darted toward Dr. Joe again. She froze in alarm. Lin Mo shielded her just in time. The creature's form wrapped around him, hardening into armor. Dr. Joe could barely believe her eyes. He declared he'd use that power to protect everyone. Glancing at himself, he admitted it looked like white armor. Then he corrected himself. He wasn't white armor. He released his light. The creature chuckled, saying it had chosen right after all, and he was getting closer to the true essence of that power. Lin Mo grinned, saying it was his turn now. He smashed a punch into the white skin and sent it flying. He followed up with a kick. The white skin twisted aside, avoiding it. He muttered that he still wasn't fast enough, not nearly enough. Meanwhile, Dr. Joe tried to make sense of what she was seeing, muttering that it looked like a layer of biomass was somehow creating energy out of nothing and feeding it to the host. She wondered aloud if that meant the host had a near infinite supply of power. She pressed him again, asking what the nature of his ability really was. He replied they shouldn't even get into why he and Whitey shared the same power. This fight was going to be brutal. He ducked the next strike. The white skin mirrored him. They clashed again and again. He reasoned that since his power could accelerate, then maybe it could reverse. But the white skin tricked him, faking one move and blitzing past him straight for Dr. Joe. She cursed under her breath. Lin Mo yelled that he had to stop it. He slammed his fist into the ground, shaking the entire place. The white skin landed right in front of Dr. Joe, blade raised. But just as it was about to cut her down, time froze solid. Lin Mo murmured that it looked like he finally caught up. He had to seize that instant. One strike, and it would be over. He unleashed his skill, Phantom of Doom. The white skin's body exploded in a single flash. Lin Mo stepped toward Dr. Joe, both of them drenched in the creature's blood. He reached out a hand. He told her they needed to move. There was still work to finish. Somewhere else, Josh mentioned that it seemed they'd made it. Maggie mumbled that it felt warm, but she wondered softly when her mom would come back. Then came a metallic clang echoing from the vents, and Josh frowned, asking what the hell that was. He wondered if it was another white armor. Lin Mo turned to Josh, tossing out that they were back. Josh replied that they were finally back, sounding a bit worn. Linmo pressed him about what was wrong, while Dr. Joe warned him not to get too worked up, since his wound had opened and she'd need to stitch it again. Josh mentioned there'd been some movement in the heating duct earlier. Maybe White Armor's doing. Linmo pushed for details about the movement. He explained that it was just an old vent creaking. Josh shouldn't panic. It was just his nerves because those creatures were already busy downstairs, but the vent suddenly burst open. Metal parts clattered onto the floor, jolting everyone. A massive shadow rose out of the debris. Josh shouted that they should look. He'd been right, while Linmo cursed and asked if they hadn't all turned into blood nest already. Then Maggie piped up, calling for her mom. Corbin questioned if it wasn't the vent, but the heating ducts, saying it was on fire, while Dorothy demanded why Maggie was even there. Maggie stammered that a big white dog broke into the house, and some strange blonde uncle shot a bunch of uncles and aunts, but Uncle Josh saved her before getting hurt by that blonde uncle. She then begged the black neighbor uncle and red-haired neighbor aunt to help him. Linmo asked if he was supposed to be the black uncle, while Josh commented that the kid remembered everything. Out of nowhere, Corbin turned to Linmo and called him a brat. Linmo blinked, confused. Corbin followed up, saying he'd missed him so much. Linmo froze, thrown off. Corbin declared he'd walked all the way from Aberdeen across the continent. Linmo snapped a curse at him. He demanded to know who the hell he was. He wondered what kind of arrogant guy this was, while Corbin fired back, asking how he could do that to him, saying even his dad never hit him. Linmo wondered if he was one of those weakly oddballs like the doctor. He muttered that the guy acted like they'd known each other forever, but he had no friends in Aberdeen, so maybe his resurrection had twisted not just the future, but also the past. Corbin suddenly latched onto his arm and rubbed his cheek against it. He announced they'd start a new band. He was Slash's right hand, and Linmo would be Hendrix's left. But Linmo told him he never said that and didn't even know who they were, so he'd better let go. Maggie asked if they were close friends, and Dorothy said they probably were. Meanwhile, Linmo swore inwardly, wondering who the hell that clown was. He figured maybe the changes from last week could be blamed on the butterfly effect, since that altered the future, but this weird guy's connection to his past made no sense. He decided he'd have to ask her, calling her Miss Parasite, saying he had a few questions. But then he grumbled that before, she came on her own, and now that he was trying to reach her, she wouldn't show up. Selfish. Dr. Joe cut in, saying this wasn't the time for reunions. He shot back, asking what reunion she even meant. He didn't know the guy, while Corbin accused him of being a jerk for dragging him all the way there just for laughs. Dr. Joe insisted that wasn't her point and asked if he'd realized what was happening. She explained they'd handled the heater issue, but a bigger one was brewing. Those white armors seemed to be the mom's children, and the blood nests were feeding it. From what they'd seen below, it was only a matter of time before the blood nest consumed the whole building. If they didn't act, the blood nest would spread, and Linmo confirmed if that meant more white armors, like the one with the colon sword. He said if that was it, he could take care of it himself, but she told him it wasn't that simple. His light had always been blue, and after using Black Fury, it burned even brighter. He guessed Black Fury was the same as Black Form, and asked if activating it ate up a lot of heat. She agreed, saying that form drained heat fast, and what he had now might not be enough to trigger it again. He was the only one in the building capable of facing the mutated white armor, which meant they were in deep trouble. He declared that to survive, he'd keep fighting to protect, so he needed heat. Then he said he understood. He asked if she had extra plates around, and when she pointed to them, she asked what he was planning. He turned to Josh and said he needed to borrow his crowbar. He used it to pry nails loose. He muttered that whether it was the outer blood nest or the mutated white armor, there was just one main problem. As the saying goes, humans are iron, food is steel. If they don't eat, they weaken. Eat, and they can work. Dr. Joe muttered that it must be the hydroponic tank again. She remarked that his brain worked in bizarre ways and asked if he planned to start farming there. But he shrugged that it was just a worker's instinct, a natural skill. Besides, more people were gathering, so food came first. He added that he knew exactly what hungry people did. She asked what his next move was since an empty tank wasn't going to magically grow food. He cracked his knuckles in response. A bit later, Linmo noted that, as expected, the bodies on that floor had vanished. No blood, nothing. He said something must be gathering the corpses, likely the same big guy from earlier. That meant the blood nest would soon reach their floor, so they needed to hurry. He planned to use Black Fury to wipe out the source completely. But first, they needed to fix the heat and food situation. Suddenly, Corbin called out, asking where he was heading alone. Lin Mo demanded to know why he was tailing him. Corbin said he got it, guessing Lin Mo was embarrassed to call him a friend. That was fine. He knew Lin Mo worked for some big company while he was just a bum nobody wanted around. But Lin Mo couldn't figure that guy out. Corbin went on saying it was just the two of them, so they should talk about everything. But Lin Mo shot back that he was annoying. Corbin pressed him on why he wouldn't talk, and Lin Mo muttered that they were doomed. Corbin agreed, saying it was all over.